Hi guys, and welcome back to Jessie Kate Creates. So today I'm going to be sharing a card with you that I have been thinking about making for quite some time now. So I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I will get an idea for a card in my head. Oftentimes I get a lot of ideas for a card in my head, like all at once. Like I'll just have all this inspiration for what I should do for a card. And a lot of times when that happens, I'll put it in a notebook, I'll save it in my phone or something like that, but I don't always remember to then go back and make those cards. Like I'll pick one of those ideas and forget about the other ones because new ideas come and I'm chasing those ideas. But this is a card idea I've had in my head for a minute, and it's with a stamp set that I hadn't used before. It is with a stamp set by the Greetery, this one right here, that I purchased this around Black Friday time, along with a bunch of other stamps, when everything was like good deals all over the place. And I hadn't actually had a chance to use it yet. So for this card, I thought it would be perfect, and I'm really, really excited with how it turned out. So to see the card and how I made it, keep watching, and we'll get into it now. The stamp set that I'm using for this card is from the Greetery, and it's called Lemon Blossom. It is a layering stamp set, and it has some really gorgeous images of lemons. It also has a really pretty image of the inside of a lemon, and it has some florals as well. I'm mainly just going to be using the two full lemons and the leaves. So I'm starting out by taking those two stamps and mounting them in my stamping tool, just on some 80-pound cardstock. And I'm going to be stamping those down with the Waffle Flower Color Story inks in the color You Said What, which is a really nice, vibrant yellow color. And I'm just stamping it down twice to get a really good impression. Guys, the way I film right now, anytime my table wobbles, my camera wobbles, so please excuse some of the wobbling during this video. So I went ahead and stamped that down, and for the second layer of these lemons, I used the Memento ink in the color Dandelion. I stamped it a couple times to get a darker impression, but if I did this again, I'd probably use a darker color. That yellow was darker than the first color, but I'd maybe use a light orange next time. So next I moved on to the leaves in the stamp set. I just grabbed two of the leaf images, and I am going to be stamping those down as well. For the leaves, I am using the Memento ink in the color Pear Tart. These inks are really old. I had them since I first started crafting 5 years ago, and it's probably time to buy the full-size pads. But I just stamped those down multiple times until I got the color I wanted. And next I grabbed the Memento ink cube in the color Cottage Ivy to stamp the veins of the leaves. So I had those all done, cleaned off my stamps, and then off camera I went ahead and die cut those lemons and leaves out. So next I'm going to work on the background panel for the card. I have a piece of cardstock that is 4 by 5 1/4, so it's just a little bit smaller than your regular A2 size card. And here I am just taking some painter's tape and masking off all of the edges of the card. You could use masking paper for this. If you have a stencil, you could use that as well. I just have blue painter's tape, so that is what I'm using here. Now, with the part that is exposed, I'm going to be doing some ink blending. Again, I'm using those Waffle Flower Color Story inks in the color New Fish in Pond and Peace of Mind, which are very lovely blue shades. Now, New Fish in Pond is a very light blue color. And that's what I'm going to start with. So you can see there I have a piece of scratch paper that I'm just using to blot off some of the excess ink before I get started on my panel. And I'm just using a light hand and blending in circular motions, going almost up to the top of the card. I'm still relatively new to ink blending. I'm getting better at it, but what I have learned is that a lighter hand usually makes blending go much easier than a heavy hand. So just you know, be patient. Don't press too hard. It does take time sometimes to get a blend like you want, so just be patient. I've gone ahead and sped it up here so that you don't spend forever watching the ink blend. Once I've gotten that light blue down, I'm going to move on to Peace of Mind, which is a really gorgeous, deeper blue, kind of maybe a little bit gray as well, but it's really lovely, and these two colors work really nice together. And I want this color to stay mainly on the lower portion of the card. Again, please excuse that wobbling. I wanted to make this card though because it's spring, and where I live the past 2 weekends, during the week it's been like dreary and cold and rainy and cloudy, and then the last 2 weekends it's just been like beautiful and sunny and in the 70s and 80s. And I think the first day of spring here, it was in the upper 70s, lower 80s, and it was just like spring is here. And so I wanted to make a card that felt like spring was here as well. And that's what inspired me to make this card. So once I'm done with all of that blending, I'm just going to go ahead and peel off the tape, and that is what we are left with. So now that I have all my ink blending done, I just grabbed those die cuts from earlier and played around with where I wanted them positioned on the card. I also knew the sentiment I was going to use. It was going to say, "Happy birthday, my main squeeze." So I took that bottom stamp just so that I knew exactly where I wanted to position the lemons with the stamps so that the spacing would all work out. I don't know about you guys. I feel like I probably spend too much time fiddling with the placement of things. But once I finally got it where I liked it, I took a little piece of painter's tape just to keep that positioning and lined the panel and the stamp in my stamping tool so I could get it just right. To stamp my sentiment today, I am using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Now on the sentiment, I had to mask off a little bit of the sentiment because what it really says is, "You are my main squeeze," but I didn't want that "you are" part on there, so I just took a piece of painter's tape and masked off the part of the sentiment I did not want, and then stamped it down. Another way you could do this is just by cutting the stamp so you don't have to deal with masking. I went back to try and make this card again, and I forgot to mask off the part that I didn't want. It's still fine. It's still a really cute card, but if you cut your stamp in half, you don't have to worry about that, and it doesn't hurt the stamps. So once I got that stamped down, I went ahead and used some glue to adhere my little lemons and leaves. I did decide to go ahead and pop up one of those lemons with foam tape, just so that the card would have a little bit more dimension and interest. To finish off this card, I wanted to use some clear sequins. I store my clear sequins in a very old nail case. And these sequins, I believe I purchased at Michael's, and they came in 3 different sizes. And I've just pulled out the 2 smaller sizes. And once again, fiddling around with where I want the sequins to go on my card. Once I figured out where I want them, I am using a jewel picker tool along with some glue just to get all those sequins exactly where I want them. If you don't have a jewel pick like this one, I would highly encourage you to get one. For a long time I didn't have one, and I tried to use tweezers or make my own, and they just weren't as nice. And the jewel pickers only cost a few bucks on Amazon, so I would encourage you to do that. So here I am just working on the inside of the card. So I have another white piece of cardstock that's cut down to 4 by 5 1/4. I've glued some extra die cuts on the inside, and then I used a stamp set from Stampin' Up! That is called Picture Perfect Birthday. It's very quickly becoming one of my favorite stamp sets, and I just picked one of those sentiments and stamped that on the panel, and now I'm going to put it in my card. So for my card base, I just have a piece of 80-pound cardstock cut to 4 1/4 by 11 and scored at 5 1/2 to make a top folding card. I'm just going to go ahead and adhere that panel to the inside of the card and press it down. And then once that's done, I can go ahead and adhere the front panel to the card, just using some foam tape for that, again, just to add a little bit of dimension and interest to the card. Once I got it where I like it, I'm just going to go ahead and press it down, and voila, that completes my card. I hope you enjoyed this clean and simple card, and I hope it just makes you think of the sunshine of spring. I'll see you next time, guys.